Hello, everyone. With this, I want to welcome you to the Youth Leadership Day. My name is Dennis Waniek. I'm the head of business development of AIESEC in Germany, and I feel privileged to introduce you to this amazing event with a lot of inspiring speakers, a lot of great content, and an event that is solely based around the topic of leadership. In AIESEC, we define leadership with 4 key qualities that this day will be shaped around, which is the key qualities of empowering others, self-awareness, solution orientation, and being a world citizen. So you can be inspired by thought leaders across Germany that have a lot of experience that can tell you more about this, and be excited about what is to come. For this event, I want to introduce to you a person that I had the privilege to work with in 2015 and 2016 already. She will be your moderator. Her name is Katharina Wegner, and she has been driving partnerships in Germany and globally, contributing hugely to providing a platform for youth to actually engage and bring in their voice as leaders of the present and the future. And with this, I am highly excited and super privileged to welcome this amazing host of this event for you to lead you through this day, share with you a little bit what she thinks, where she comes from, what shaped her, and provide you an inspiring opener and closer of this great event. So with this, welcome, Katharina. I'm very happy to have you here with us.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Super happy to be here as well. And with that, welcome as well from my side to this AIESEC Youth Leadership Day. And to start, let's start with first things first. Why are we actually here? As Dennis already said, in AIESEC, we believe in youth leadership as a key for a better future. And with this event, AIESEC wants to give you an opportunity to learn and to get inspired from experts from very different industries and areas. We have people from startups, we have people from nonprofit, from bigger organizations. And we really want to show you different perspectives of leadership, because there's not one simple key to leadership, but there are lots of different ways of how to be a good leader. And I'm here today to lead you through this day and be your moderator. And I'm here because, well, I had the honor to work with AIESEC a couple of years back. And now I'm really happy to be back here with you and guide you through this day. To give you a little bit of background, what I have done before in AIESEC and also beyond. I joined AIESEC actually already in 2013, where I first was a member in the local teams. I went on a really great AIESEC exchange experience where I went to Colombia to teach children in schools English. And I was also a local team leader and in the board active. And afterwards, I worked as the national head of partnerships for AIESEC in Germany, where I was responsible for leading partnerships across the German market with different corporates, and was leading a really amazing team. And then after this, I went on to work for AIESEC International, the global board of the organization, where I worked as a global partnerships manager. And I was responsible for leading some of the biggest partners that we have in AIESEC, such as DPDHL, which is here in Germany as well, Electrolux in Sweden, and Apple in the UK. And after these really great experiences with AIESEC, I went on to ING to work as an innovation consultant, where I helped ING to become a more innovation-enabled organization by facilitating partnerships with fintech companies. And then after this, I learned that I'm really interested in tech-related topics. So I wanted to dive deeper into this interest, and that's why I'm now studying my master's in information management. So I went back to school for a year. So but enough about me. For today, I'm really curious to explore these two questions with you. Because today you will hear a lot about why youth leadership is important. You will hear a lot about what it takes to be a good leader. But let's start first with what you actually think and what your first thoughts on these topics are. So I brought a video for you, and you will see some challenges that we face in nowadays world, and also some of the leaders who are tackling these issues. And it would be cool if you can just write in the chat while you're seeing this video, why you think, based on this context, we need youth leadership, and also what you think it takes to tackle challenges like this. And maybe you even see some people taking up some leadership qualities that you think are important. So let's start the video and see your comments in the chats.
2020 has not been a kind year. It's been a year that preyed on the weak and the sick. A year that claimed lives and tested trust. A year filled with division and upended by chaos. It's been a year dominated by staggering loss of life across the world. But it's a world still filled with courage, compassion, and heart.
Pandemics occur. They have always occurred and they will occur. It would be really shameful if we don't learn from what we've been through.
Amidst tragedy, we learned that we know how to put others before ourselves. Despite resistance, despite pushback, we persisted. This is a world of resilience, a world propelled by the belief that overcoming the impossible is in fact possible. With the inspiration of innovation, we were once again reminded that nothing is out of reach and that we should shoot for the stars. Faced with the kind of viral enemy the world hasn't known for generations, we witnessed every day the true meaning of what it is to be a hero. Society reckoned with inequality, and people took to the streets and used their ballots to make their voices heard.
Let's stop thinking that our voice don't matter. That's right. And vote!
Heroes have walked among us and will again. Records were shattered and barriers were broken.
While I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last.
We imagine a tomorrow filled with unity, not division, a tomorrow that delivers equality, long overdue. A tomorrow galvanized to tackle the world's great challenges. 2020 upended norms and our understanding of normal. It was a year no one could predict. But we've endured hard years before. We've endured tragedy before. We emerged from those years stronger, wiser, better. And so it will be with this year, too.
I believe there is a decline in trust in formal leaders. And because of that, it's really important that young leaders, that young people gain leadership skills to deal with crises like this in the future. That's at least one common line of thought, that, well, these people that are now dealing with these crises on like a global level, they have a lot of experience and they had to gain these skills somewhere before, right? And it's always better to learn something while you're still young and you're just like absorbing all the learnings like crazy. But there's actually also a second part to this, which I believe is very, very important. If you look at these challenges, especially such as some as like climate change, we young people, we are the ones affected by these issues most. So it's important that we are part of the solution and that our voices are heard and that we are contributing to fixing these issues and not just waiting for someone else to solve them for us. And this is why I believe it's really key to develop leadership in young people already. So what does it take then to be a good leader? Well, there are lots of different answers, but how AIESEC defines it is, as Dennis mentioned, there are 4 qualities that we see as key in developing in young people to be effective leaders. And this model actually shows 2 sides. It's on the one hand, it's what leaders need in today's changing world, but it's also based on some research that was done looking at in AIESEC experiences, what do young people develop? And what can you get out of experiences with AIESEC? So these are the four qualities, and I will now go into all of them a bit shortly because we will look at them throughout the day today. So you get an overview of what they mean, and I will share a small story with each of them of how I developed this working in AIESEC mainly. So the first one is self-awareness. For me, this is where it all starts. It's the basis for making a difference, for dealing with people. There's this common saying, before you can lead someone else, you actually need to know and lead yourself. And it's really about being also clear and about why you're doing things, why you're acting in a certain way, and then being able to adapt. And for me, this was really something that I felt I was able to learn when I was working in the national board of AIESEC. Because you work under quite high pressure situations, and always had a tendency to be quite harsh on myself and harsh on others, always want really, really great quality. And while that was, of course, usually a good thing, it might sometimes lead to the fact that I was maybe too harsh on other people. And it ended in not really getting to the results that I wanted, right? But then I got a lot of great feedback from the people that I was working with. And I learned of how I could better communicate and how I could better understand why I'm acting and feeling in a certain way. And in this way, better achieve my goals and better work with other people. And I think I really had this opportunity to learn this at an early age because I worked, well, first in quite a challenging environment, but at the same time in a very supportive environment with very great people that would challenge me and that would reflect back to me what they were seeing. And that's for me always something very important to look at in places where I work. The second one is solution orientation. Solution orientation is really about being resilient in difficult situations. It's about staying positive, keeping to try finding better ways forward. And in the way of how you attack problems as well. It's about being very analytical, first understanding what is really the problem that you're trying to solve. And only then, after considering all the numbers, all the facts, all the different stakeholders involved and their opinions, then coming forward with solutions and then keep iterating, keep trying. And for me, this is something that I was really able to learn when I worked with AIESEC International. So when I started there, I was taking over, of course, a lot of the big accounts. I had transitions for them. And I was very lucky because the person who was doing the job before me, she was doing a great job. And she had a lot of new innovative ideas. But that also meant that lots of these ideas were still in the stage where either they were just signed off and like about to start, or such as in the example that I will tell you now, there had been a small pilot and we tried something out, but there was still a lot of room for improvement. The project I'm talking about is about a partnership with Electrolux, where we, for the first time, started to do also social internships with them to tackle their sustainability strategy and not only work on the talent part that we usually work on. And my predecessor, she was able to do some first pilots with them, but not everyone was really happy because we all wanted to create more impact. So what I did is I really tried to analyze the problem, see which issues we had, which issues were on our side, what issues did Electrolux see, and essentially how could we better achieve our common vision together. And what we initially in the end did was we standardized everything way more. We got some more HR resources on this to really focus more on it and fixed lots of different small problems. And in the end, we were able to grow from something like 3 interns in the first year to something like 30 in my year. And the coolest thing is that my successor afterwards managed to scale it by another 10x. So this really showed how you can really grow fast and create an impact if you understand the problem and if you solve not only the symptoms, but like what is really behind it. The third one is empowering others. This one is about how you communicate your ideas clearly and how you empower others to take actions. And it's also about helping others to be successful and to grow. And this is something I was really able to see in my business development team that I was leading when I was working for AIESEC in Germany. So I was leading a team of 6 people, and they were all virtually working across Germany. It was a really great experience because I could see when giving them responsibilities and helping them grow, how much we could achieve together. And one example that I like to think back to is actually of a girl who did not really have like the typical, let's say, AIESEC career, but I really saw that she had a lot of great potential. And so I asked her to run one of our events, very similar to actually this one today, just that, well, it wasn't online back then. And she did a really incredible job. Of course, she needed some help in the beginning and she needed support, but because she had the right mindset, she really just made it happen. And afterwards, she shared with me that before she wasn't thinking that she could do this actually, but because people believed in her and gave her the opportunity, she really made it happen. And yeah, I'm super grateful for experiences like this, where you can experience this firsthand, how you can help another person to grow. The last one is world citizen. This one is about being interested in world issues and understanding them, and especially believing that you as a young person can actually make a difference towards them and make something happen to improve them for the better. And for me personally, I had a really great experience working with AIESEC and volunteering, especially when I went to Colombia for a social project, where I was really able to see on the ground how other people were experiencing life and what kind of opportunities they had. And from there, see that even small actions could make a difference in these people's life. And I think this one, but also all these other qualities are not just something that are important in the beginning or when you're working for a nonprofit organization, but it's really a sort of mindset that is getting shaped and used afterwards throughout your life and your career. And I'll be sharing a bit more about that in the closing of how I'm applying these things in my life and in my previous role after AIESEC. So stay tuned for that. But for today, for now, I would like to look with you a bit into what you want to learn and take forward from today. Because let's face it, we have a lot of great speakers here today. We have a lot of insights that you can take, and you've now heard a bit about what this all is about. So I want to hear from you what you want to take out of it, what do you want to learn, what do you hope for? And as a short heads up, I'll be checking back in with you on this in the end to see what you have achieved and learned, and we will be asking you throughout the day what you are learning, so that you can really make most out of this day today. And with this, I want to leave you with some quote. Youth can be the leaders of tomorrow if we procrastinate. And I really believe that young leaders can lead today. They can make a difference today. Of course, young people still need to develop and grow, but that only happens if you do things and if you do things that are impactful and that make a difference. So let's not procrastinate. Let's get it on with this day. And for that, I hand it over to Dennis, who will share with you a bit about the agenda and the speakers of this day. I wish you all the best. I wish you a lot of fun, and I will see you back for the panel and the closing later on this day.
Amazing. Thank you very much for this great introduction, Kati. It is a pleasure always hearing you speaking, and I can testify to what she said. So I'm very happy having her here. And as she said, I will just introduce you shortly already to the agenda, so you can already see what excitement is ahead of you. And then we will start with our first guest. So our first guest, I will introduce the last or more in detail, where you will hear a keynote from Michael Illert from the SR group. But you also have more amazing guests that you can participate with. You have in the panel Philipp Hofschöfer from Studo. You have Carsten Sens from Huawei. Gunil Egligens delivering a workshop. Samir Kek is there. Jendrik Peters, Professor Oliver Günther. So there are many, many guests that you can, well, every person more in detail, and then I have the chance to introduce them to you individually. So with this, we will start actually for our first keynote speaker for today. And he is actually an AIESEC alumnus. His name is Michael Illert, as I mentioned. He is part of the SR group. And Michael leads the brand Fraser Jones, Taylor Root, Carter Murray, the global brands in the European office. He is a proud AIESEC alumnus and has been supporting us also in the past already with a great deal, with all of his ideas, his expertise. And he strongly believes that AIESEC actually has a profound impact on the leader he is today. And for this, when we asked him what youth leadership means for him, he said that a leader is somebody that positively influences others and advances his career. This is how he understands his role. And he will be talking about the topic of value-based leadership, finding solution in times of challenges. In terms of the LDM qualities, it will be based on solution orientation. So here you can look forward to his amazing keynote. I'm very excited to hear it as well. And after the break, we will immediately start with it. Until then, enjoy the break and see you in 5.
Do you ever get stuck? You've been there, trying over and over without finding a way to solve the problem. But here's the secret. You already have everything you need.
Solution-minded is a mindset that there is a solution to every problem, and we have a way to get there. It doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter who you are. Everyone has the opportunity for that success.
You might need to take risks, so go for it. What if you fail? Well then, you stand up, you shake off the dust, and you try again. Because no matter how hard things get, and how uncertain they may be, there's always a way.
Hustle would be putting all your effort into achieving the goal at hand. And for me, that means making every minute count.
A different tool is not the solution. This is not someone else's problem. No excuses. You need to work with what you have and make it happen.
According to your values and according to how the situation.
Hey, bathroom toilet, just trying to reply.
No one ever developed by solving easy challenges. So, be resilient instead of complaining about the circumstances. Adapt and change the way you think.
Confusing, itching, scratching, mumbling, bumbling, grumbling, humbling, stumbling, grinding away at yourself. Stop it and just do!
That's what it means to be solution-oriented. Do you ever get stuck? You've been there, trying over and over without finding a way to solve the problem. But here's the secret. You already have everything you need.
Solution-minded is a mindset that there is a solution to every problem, and we have a way to get there. It doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter who you are. Everyone has the opportunity for that success.
You might need to take risks, so go for it. What if you fail? Well then, you stand up, you shake off the dust, and you try again. Because no matter how hard things get, and how uncertain they may be, there's always a way.
Hustle would be putting all your effort into achieving the goal at hand. And for me, that means making every minute count.
A different tool is not the solution. This is not someone else's problem. No excuses. You need to work with what you have and make it happen.
According to your values and according to how the situation.
Hey, bathroom toilet, just trying to reply.
No one ever developed by solving easy challenges. So, be resilient instead of complaining about the circumstances. Adapt and change the way you think.
Confusing, itching, scratching, mumbling, bumbling, grumbling, humbling, stumbling, grinding away at yourself. Stop it and just do!
That's what it means to be solution-oriented. Do you ever get stuck? You've been there, trying over and over without finding a way to solve the problem. But here's the secret. You already have everything you need.
Solution-minded is a mindset that there is a solution to every problem, and we have a way to get there. It doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter who you are. Everyone has the opportunity for that success.
You might need to take risks, so go for it. What if you fail? Well then, you stand up, you shake off the dust, and you try again. Because no matter how hard things get, and how uncertain they may be, there's always a way.
Hustle would be putting all your effort into achieving the goal at hand. And for me, that means making every minute count.
A different tool is not the solution. This is not someone else's problem. No excuses. You need to work with what you have and make it happen.
According to your values and according to how the situation.
Hey, bathroom toilet, just trying to reply.
No one ever developed by solving easy challenges. So, be resilient instead of complaining about the circumstances. Adapt and change the way you think.
Confusing, itching, scratching, mumbling, bumbling, grumbling, humbling, stumbling, grinding away at yourself. Stop it and just do!
That's what it means to be solution-oriented. Do you ever get stuck? You've been there, trying over and over without finding a way to solve the problem. But here's the secret. You already have everything you need.
Solution-minded is a mindset that there is a solution to every problem, and we have a way to get there. It doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter who you are. Everyone has the opportunity for that success.
You might need to take risks, so go for it. What if you fail? Well then, you stand up, you shake off the dust, and you try again. Because no matter how hard things get, and how uncertain they may be, there's always a way.
Hustle would be putting all your effort into achieving the goal at hand. And for me, that means making every minute count.
A different tool is not the solution. This is not someone else's problem. No excuses. You need to work with what you have and make it happen.
According to your values and according to how the situation.
Hey, bathroom toilet, just tried to reply.
No one ever developed by solving easy challenges. So, be resilient instead of complaining about the circumstances. Adapt and change the way you think.
Confusing, itching, scratching, mumbling, bumbling, grumbling, humbling, stumbling, grinding away at yourself. Stop it and just do!
That's what it means to be solution-oriented. Do you ever get stuck? You've been there, trying over and over without finding a way to solve the problem. But here's the secret. You already have everything you need.
Solution-minded is a mindset that there is a solution to every problem, and we have a way to get there. It doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter who you are. Everyone has the opportunity for that success.
You might need to take risks, so go for it. What if you fail? Well then, you stand up, you shake off the dust, and you try again. Because no matter how hard things get, and how uncertain they may be, there's always a way.
Hustle would be putting all your effort into achieving the goal at hand. And for me, that means making every minute count.
A different tool is not the solution. This is not someone else's problem. No excuses. You need to work with what you have and make it happen.
According to your values and according to how the situation.
Hey, bathroom toilet, just tried to reply.
No one ever developed by solving easy challenges. So, be resilient instead of complaining about the circumstances. Adapt and change the way you think.
Confusing, itching, scratching, mumbling, bumbling, grumbling, humbling, stumbling, grinding away at yourself. Stop it and just do!
That's what it means to be solution-oriented. ever get stuck? You've been there, trying over and over without finding a way to solve the problem. But here's the secret. You already have everything you need.
Solution-minded is a mindset that there is a solution to every problem, and we have a way to get there. It doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter who you are. Everyone has the opportunity for that success.
You might need to take risks, so go for it. What if you fail? Well then, you stand up, you shake off the dust, and you try again. Because no matter how hard things get, and how uncertain they may be, there's always a way.
Hustle would be putting all your effort into achieving the goal at hand. And for me, that means making every minute count.
A different tool is not the solution. This is not someone else's problem. No excuses. You need to work with what you have and make it happen.
According to your values and according to how the situation.
Hey, bathroom toilet, just trying to reply.
No one ever developed by solving easy challenges. So, be resilient instead of complaining about the circumstances. Adapt and change the way you think.
Confusing, itching, scratching, mumbling, bumbling, grumbling, humbling, stumbling, grinding away at yourself. Stop it and just do!
That's what it means to be solution-oriented. Do you ever get stuck? You've been there, trying over and over without finding a way to solve the problem. But here's the secret. You already have everything you need.
Live.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for having me at your Youth Leadership Day. I was asked to give a little presentation about leadership and value-based leadership. Before I go into what I thought to talk about, just a couple of points about DSR Group, my employer. Some of you might know us. We are supporting AIESEC now for many, many years in Germany. And we are a global recruitment business. And as I always say, a little bit on the light-hearted way, we are pretty much AIESEC for adults, right? We obviously work with our clients and we find them great talent, and we very often find them that great talent globally. And very often when we place a very senior candidate into a position with one of our clients that also contains an international relocation. DSR Group is a brand which most of our clients would know, because that is just the, so to speak, the holding company of the four core businesses we have, which is Katamori. They focus on sales and marketing professionals. Brewer Morris is very niche. They focus on treasury and tax. Fraser Jones, the brand I'm most active in, focuses on senior professionals within HR, and Taylor Root focuses on professionals within legal and compliance. Don't really want to talk so much more about what we do, but I thought before we go into the presentation to have a quick look into what we call our social purpose, because we believe as a business, we actually have a purpose which is more than just generating shareholder value. And that's what we call our social purpose. And what we really try to achieve here is to leverage the incredible network which we have built over the years with our clients and our candidates and everybody who we know in the market, but also the resources we have built up as a business, and use these to really help the social sector, to help charities, and to have an impact on society. So to give you maybe 2 examples of what we're doing here in Amsterdam, in the office where I'm based, we are working quite a lot with Dress for Success, which is a charity which helps people to restart or start their career. And it's a lot about dressing people up, but not just in the literal sense. It's also about preparing people psychologically, coaching people to be able to win that first or the next job after a crisis in their lives. In our London headquarters, obviously we couldn't do that last year, but we do a program which is our space, is your space, where charities can use our offices, to work, to hold up meetings, and we connect them with senior stakeholders to really help them to excel. So this is something what we do on the social purpose side as a business. I will talk a little bit more about myself throughout the presentation. Just a quick line. Obviously, my name is Michael. I'm a very proud AIESEC in brackets alumni. I would rather say I'm a proud AIESECer. After my time in AIESEC, which was started in the year 2000, where I was a VP in the LC of Jena, and then later on LCP, and then moved into the MC as the VP External Relations, or Sales, as you do this call this today. I started my career after that in HR. And today I'm leading the SR Group's business across continental Europe. So coming to the actual keynote speech, I was thinking about quite a lot what to present on. And the question here really was, value-based leadership. And then I thought, okay, we could look at this from a more theoretical or pragmatic point of view. But then I thought maybe we also look at it maybe from a very personal viewpoint for myself, and how I've, for myself, discovered who I am as the leader. And so I tried to mix all of this together, and see this as an opportunity to share some thoughts from my side. If you have any questions or comments, just put them in the chat, and I think Laura will filter some of the good questions out and make sure I can see them as well, so we can make this interactive, if that makes sense. So we can't really talk about leadership, I think, without talking about privilege first. And I don't really want to to spend a lot of time on an ethical debate right now, but I think when we talk about leadership in our context, and we look at something very pragmatic as the Maslow pyramid of needs, I think we all need to understand that we have the absolute privilege that all of us in this call, I'm quite confident, are in the very upper areas of the pyramid, right? And therefore, we might talk about leadership in a very different context than some other people are able to do, because of where they are, and because of questions around equality, right, and privilege. So I think that's something we need to keep in mind, how privileged and lucky we actually all are to be able to talk about leadership in the way we do. But then when we look at leadership, I found one quote which spoke to me. That quote is from Paul Foreman, who used to work for businesses like Procter & Gamble, Nestle, and used to be the CEO of Unilever. And he said that leadership is helping people to succeed. It's inspiring them, uniting them behind an idea, and then also being accountable. And I really like this quote because of the key messages which are in the quote, but also some of the messages which are purposely not in the quote. Right? It's for me, the key words here is helping people to succeed, to inspire, purpose, but also accountability. Right? So these are really some really core messages when I think about leadership, which ring truth to me. And then when you look at leadership, again, from a very different perspective, is what is leadership not, right? And the first thing which comes to my mind is that leadership is definitely not management. Right? A lot of people talk about leadership and would say to me, talk about their responsibility, and they would say something, I'm responsible for X million of budget and I have this many direct reports. And that's all great and it's very important, but that's management. That's not leadership, right? Leadership is not a title, right? And having a certain position. Just because you have a chief officer title on your business card, that doesn't mean you are necessarily a leader. You might actually just be not a leader at all. You just have a very senior title. And leadership also is not, from my point of view, a position in a hierarchy. Leadership is something which people bring to the table or do not bring to the table, and it's disconnected from these three words. And most importantly, and I think quite a lot don't think about this, leadership is not an adjective, right? There is no certain personality traits which make people a leader. You can be a leader in various different ways, shapes or form. I think leadership means something very different than this. Now, when I think about leadership compared to management, I would think about, instead of directing people, and what I mean with this directing, I would mean say we need to do exactly this. I think leadership is enable people to achieve a certain aim and give them the freedom to find their own way and the ability to find their own ways to achieve that aim. That's leadership. Leadership for me is also the difference between pushing and guiding. And with pushing, I mean like a very traditional management approach, right, where there would be a senior leader who gives ever increasing targets. Instead of this, I think leadership is to guide people to continuously excel and overachieve, but from a very different perspective. And I think leadership is also the difference between demanding from people to do something and actually doing. And what I mean with this, a traditional leader would demand certain results. I think leadership, from my perspective, means to lead by example and do it yourself. And if I expect something from the people I work with, the expectation always needs to be that I can do the same, right? And that I lead by example as well. So the difference here is between actually leadership is more like being an example rather than just demanding. And then last but not least, I think management is aiming for goals, right? And a goal could be a certain revenue target, for example, but leadership is to aim for purpose, right? So that's a huge difference just in these words. Now, when we then look at leadership, I think we also have to talk about values because the two of them just can't exist without each other. And when you look at looked up a very simple definition of values in actually just in the Cambridge Dictionary, what they wrote is that values are the beliefs people have about what's right or wrong, and therefore what's right or wrong or most important in life, business, etc. Right, and then these beliefs of what is right or wrong actually control their behavior. Right, so I think that is a very simple definition of values. And obviously, value-driven businesses and businesses agreeing on global corporate values, that is not necessarily a new trend, but you can very easily see how serious a business is about that when you read through their values. I brought you two examples. I don't know how many of you know Innocent Drinks. Innocent Drinks is a smoothie business in the UK, which started, I think, in 1999, and is a completely value-driven business with some incredible growth results. And it's interestingly now owned or part-owned by Coca-Cola. But when you look at what they are about and when you look at their values, you can very clearly see what this business is about, right? Because this business is about a natural product, which is obviously the smoothies, right? It's entrepreneurial because they come up with a new idea. And trust me, in 1999, there were not that many smoothies on supermarket shelves or Starbucks or wherever, right? That has significantly changed over the last number of years. But also they are a responsible business they're commercial, and they're generous, right? And I think these 5 words not only describe very well who they are and how they behave, but also what their product is, right? And also who potentially their client is. And then when you look at us as a business, the SR Group, we have also obviously values, and our 4 values are agile, which is all around flexibility. And this flexibility for us is obviously in the direction of our clients and being able to offer tailored products and solutions for exactly what our clients need. But agile also means agility towards our employees, right? We run something what we call Future Flex in terms of the flexibility of how people can work, from where they can work, and how we work together. To be authentic is a core value for us, right? What we do is a trust business. So we want people to be themselves at work, right? And to not come to work and pretend to be somebody who they not are, just to fit in. And we are actually really proud that more than 90% of all our employees globally believe they can be themselves at work, right? Which is a great achievement. We are a collaborative business where we are very competitive, but we are competitive externally. We want to be the best in the market. But it doesn't really matter so much who is the best internally. Internally, we work together, we support each other to achieve great results. And obviously, in everything we do, we strive for excellence, right? And that is the 4 words which I very well believe describe us as a business, our product, but also us as an employer and who we are as a corporate. Now, this value piece, right, has become super important. And I can't stress this too much, because when you look at I call this the old supplier and client relationship, right? That used to be quite transactional. Who can deliver the best product for the most competitive price, right? That is most probably what you traditionally would learn about this. But that has fundamentally changed in many markets globally. A value alignment is actually now a key element of a buying decision. Right, when we pitch, for example, for businesses with some potential clients globally, we talk as much about what we can do as we talk about who we are as a business, because a potential client will look into whether they actually feel, from a value perspective, do we fit with each other, right? And do we want to work together? Because we're actually not seeking an old supplier and client relationship, we're actually seeking a partnership. And I put a little star on the buying decision, because this is not a one-way street, right? A lot of people always think it's always the client who decides whether they want to buy. It's also the supplier who decides whether they want to sell, right? Because I also need to feel that from a value perspective, we can work with our clients. And then suddenly you come from a potentially, for some people, abstract discussion about values to something which is absolutely key for business. Because big corporates, small corporates, entrepreneurial businesses, business of any shapes and sizes, found that it's very important for them to stick to certain values, and they seek partnerships within their supply chain who fit to these values. Now, when I then look at myself again, right, I obviously said already a couple of lines about myself, and I would want to add 1 line and say that for me personally, inclusion and equality are the most important values, right? Because I think with achieving inclusion and equality, which is obviously a vision, and where I'm sure we're all aware we are unfortunately very far away from that globally. But I think these 2 values, if we fix this and get this in the right direction globally, we will make a huge step forward, not only as businesses, but also as society. And then the last key word, right, when we talk about value-driven leadership, for me, is purpose. And purpose, actually, that's quite deep, and I think also quite difficult to talk about. I found, again, in Cambridge Dictionary, a very simple definition that purpose is why you do something or why something exists. But obviously, when you look at the simplicity of this definition, you then also know why this is actually so deep and purpose, it's so deep and difficult to think about. If you think about your own purpose and you say, okay, my purpose is why I exist, that's quite deep, right? And requires a lot of self-reflection and thinking about yourself to figure this out for you. And then when you look into this a little bit deeper, I found an interesting article about it, and I just copied 2 paragraphs out of it because I think they're quite telling, right? That purpose in regards to leadership is who you are and what makes you distinctive. Well, it doesn't matter, again, where you're on the hierarchy, what your job title is, or what you actually do. Your purpose is the magic that makes you tick, right? It's not what you do, but it's how you do your job and why, right? And then I think the last sentence, I think, is the most important one. Your purpose is what is uniquely you and what people around you would miss if you were gone, right? So that's actually a quite powerful and a very, very important word, and something really important to think about, right? And to seek purpose in life. Harvard Business School did a survey, and they found that less than 20% of leaders globally can actually define their purpose, right? So that maybe shows you how difficult this is. And for me, I obviously was working on that very one question for a very, very long time. And it was also very difficult for me to figure out what is actually my purpose when I think about myself. And what I came up with and what I believe my purpose is, and over the years I became very confident about this, is that my purpose is to push through the glass ceilings around us, and that is my purpose, right? And whether that is for myself, I'm a gay dad. We are 2 fathers. We adopted 2 children in the UK, and whether it's pushing through glass ceilings myself or help other people to push through glass ceilings, that's really my purpose, and that also aligns with my most important values, which are inclusion and equality. Now, these 3 obviously really belong together, right? Leadership, values, and purpose, I think from a modern leadership perspective, can't go without each other, right? They really come together. But then a lot of people would always say that there is a conflict, right? Because traditionally, you would learn in any business lecture that the ultimate aim of the business is to generate sustainable streams of profit. And that, to some degree, is true, but it is not mutually exclusive. Again, when we come back to the value set of innocent drinks, right? If we look again through these 5 words, there is the word entrepreneurial in there, which obviously means they want to be coming up with new market-leading things, right? And products and be special in the market. There's the word commercial in there, and directly after the word commercial, generous, right? And if you were to ask Richard Reed, who when he set up the business with his founding partners, they decided to donate, I believe, 10% of their profits to charity. They obviously say very clearly, we can't be generous if we are not commercial, right? And what they also achieve with being a very value-driven business, they have some very value-driven relationships with their suppliers. And according to one of the interviews with Richard, they are actually able to buy from some of their suppliers for significantly more competitive prices because there is a value alignment between the suppliers and themselves, right? So this is a really good example where values and profitability or business success can actually be very well aligned. And then when you look at our values again, it's very much the same, right? Because we obviously have words in there like excellence, for example. So excellent obviously means who we are as a business and what we deliver to our candidates and clients. And obviously that requires performance, right? If to be excellent, everybody who works with us needs to be doing an excellent job, right? So here we again have values which are very strictly aligned with what we want to achieve as a business. Now, when you then put this into words again, right, you could either look at traditional language and you could talk about key performance indicators, which I think, again, is management, but you can talk about contribution. So, right, so what is everybody within the team contributing? right? And in terms of pushing us forward. You could talk about performance and values, and actually the two of them put together, because if you have a certain set of values and somebody doesn't put in the right level of energy, dedication, then they're not supporting these values, right? So they're actually not excluding each other at all. And then when you look at profit and purpose, I think they really belong together, because purpose is not just what we just discussed. I think purpose is also an expectation. The consumer buys from businesses where they believe in the business's purpose and in their value set and what they're trying to do. Right? There's a reason why somebody would buy Innocence movies over a cheaper version of it. Right? And this is where that all starts coming together. And this is also where the world is changing, because it's not only about what is the best product for the cheapest price. That simplicity has disappeared a long time ago. Now, when you think about where we are actually today, well, needless to say, we are in the middle of a major health crisis. And then this health crisis has obviously caused a significant economic crisis. But this health crisis, in terms of a physical health crisis, has also caused a significant mental health crisis, right? If you think about it, because obviously there are unfortunately a lot of people who suffer under COVID itself, but there are a lot of people who suffer under the side effects, being lonely, stress, right? Worried, being robbed of social interactions, right? This is a very challenging time. And I think in challenging times, you need businesses with very strong leaders who can guide their employees through these challenging times. Because again, these are two words which are coming together, right? If you think about a really challenging market, which obviously the current climate are, there's also opportunity. Because as I think you all saw, right, there are a number of businesses who are really, really struggling in this crisis, but there are also a number of businesses who size the opportunity in driving forward. And I think that requires leadership, right? That is more than just management, to take a really challenging scenario and to come up with a value and purpose-driven approach to it and push through that crisis. Now, when you look at the future and what will be here, and I find that sometimes very difficult to discuss, because on the COVID obviously has had such a negative impact on so many people and their life, but COVID also is a significant enabler of change. So a lot of things have changed and will change going forward. So when I look at the future, I think the entire combination of work and life, the combination of the two, will have changed forever, right? So if you think about work-life balance, and we go 2 years back, we old people, we would typically talk about you young people, and your drive for work-life balance. And a lot of people would say things like, oh, the younger generations are not prepared to work as hard in terms of the amount of hours. See, I never believed that is true. I just felt that younger generations don't understand why they have to work from 8 to 5, why they can't just work maybe from 7 to 10 and do something else, then, whatever fits in their life, and then work again from 1 to 5, then go home and do the rest of the work from home, for example, right? So just having both come out together. Now, what COVID has done, it forced everybody in a white-collar job globally to do exactly this, right? And it has proven to a significant amount of leaders globally that this actually really works, and that work and life and personal life and work life can go hand in hand and are actually not mutually exclusive, right? But what this crisis has also done, it has, I think, changed completely who people want to work for, right? Is work just about achieving the fastest career for the best pay? Or is it actually to work for a value-driven business? And obviously, when you manage a business in a crisis, that is key prime time for you to prove as a leader that you stick to your values. So is it more for people to work for these purpose and value-driven businesses? And is this maybe more important than just fast career and pay? And then when you think about Maslow again and the top of the pyramid, right? I think if we think about values and we think about purpose, that is obviously personal and work combined, because I don't have a personal set of values and then a different set of values which are important for me in my work life. And this is the same for my purpose. For me, this is actually the same thing. So then if I think about self-fulfillment, then my personal life and my work life actually needs to come together. Right? It needs to meet to achieve a common purpose. And I think this is something which is extremely important for many, many people. And that will also form the absolute basis where the success of businesses will go forward. Right? If you are able to run a business with a value-driven, purpose-driven leadership approach, then I think you're on the road of success, because you will be able to engage, hire, develop, and retain amazing talent. But if you're not, then I think you will just lose out, right? The world has changed, and it will keep changing. And I think that is the key change when you look at leadership. Now, that is my insight on how I see leadership and value-based leadership. And obviously, hopefully we have a couple of questions which we quickly can go into. So one of the questions was, when would you say value-based business stops and profit-based business starts? Or is there a contradiction between the two? I really don't think there is an easy and clear-cut answer for this, right? Because to run, because one benefits the other, and one can't go without the other, right? So if you for example think about a business which wants to offer career opportunity, development opportunity to all of their staff, then that business needs to be growing. Because if that business isn't growing, people can't take over more responsibility because there is not more responsibility, right? And people can't develop. So you have to have a business which is profitable to really push forward, right? And I think the aim of a business is obviously ultimately to deliver that profit, but with purpose, right? And the combination of the two is very important again, because your clients might not want to spend their budgets with you if they don't feel that from a value and purpose perspective you're aligned. So actually, it really, really, interacts with each other. And to maybe quote Richard Reed again, the founder of Innocent, he said in another interview that he would want to become really rich and die really poor. And what he said with it is that he obviously wants to be really successful as a business leader and make a lot of money, and then spend the time until his time is over to spend this money on good things, right? So actually, the two work together really, really well. Is there an end to leadership? No, I don't think so. I think, look, leadership is taking over responsibility, right, in the simplest sense. And it's just doing more in life than just coasting, right? And if I look at my purpose and in pushing through glass ceilings, that just never ends, because there is so much to do. And that is obviously at work, and we're doing some amazing stuff around equality and inclusion. But it's also in my personal life, right? I challenge people if they say stupid things from my perspective, right? And I challenge thinking. So there is no end. I think to take over leadership is more a way of living than a job which you switch on or which you can switch off, right? I would rather see it in that way. And then, look, guys, and maybe then coming to the end, because I know you have obviously a very tight agenda. Coming back to AIESEC, I said to you guys that I was in AIESEC or started my time in AIESEC in 2000, and by then AIESEC was also already a purpose, value-driven organization, right? With a firm set of values firmly ingrained in the organization globally. And it still is, and it was already decades before I joined AIESEC. And that's obviously the amazing piece and the amazing opportunity you guys have here is you can learn and feel something which this organization has been doing for a very, very long amount of time, which is something which some businesses currently are just getting around to, right? So you have an amazing opportunity. You have an amazing opportunity to take over responsibility and therefore get to know yourself and figure out who you are as a leader. So I wish you an amazing day today. Have a great afternoon. And I'm looking forward to speak to you later again during the panel discussion. Thanks for your time, guys.
Great. Thank you very much, Michael. It has been very inspiring to hear your perspective, and also looking at the chat, there were a lot of great questions, and it's great that you already started answering the first, and we will make sure that you can also see what others wanted to ask you so we can build up on this conversation. So with this, I want to thank you a lot, and I would like to start introducing our next guest we will have in the next break or after the next break. And her name is Gönül Eglicens, and she is the regional coordinator of Teach First in NRW and is responsible for implementing the leadership program in this region, which is amazing. And for Gönül, leadership helps young people to develop a self-reflective and self-critical awareness and develop independent and responsible behavior in democratic practice. And she will be leading a workshop. So you have the opportunity to directly reflect for yourself and learn, and the opportunity to talk about the topic of mindful self-leadership. So realizing stress and balancing, something we all can relate to in these current times. So it's highly applicable, and it gives you the opportunity to learn more. It is based on the LDM quality of self-awareness. So you can look forward to this. And I'm looking forward to having you with us after the break and in the workshop. Thank you very much.
How well do you know yourself? You may not have all the answers. In fact, you must have a lot of questions. But it's all about realizing that uncertainty and being willing to meet yourself. Learning what you're good at and what needs to be developed.
The search for self-awareness never, ever stops. It's up to us to choose to learn and grow from our mistakes and our successes.
Yourself.
I'm confused.
Like, truly honest with yourself. Without ego or judgment. Without presumption or modesty. Without an opinion or any filters.
Be able to sort of separate yourself, to look at the situation from as if you were the third party, evaluating it.
Once your vision becomes impartial about your own character, you'll start over your week. Have clarity about your personal values.
What we are is just an aggregation of what we choose to value in this world. Through my actions, my behaviors, what I invest my time and attention into.
You will get better at knowing and accepting yourself. And find what is it that really matters to you. That's what it means to be self-aware.
We strive for peace and fundamental human rights.
How well do you know yourself? You may not affect you must that being willing to be developed.
For self never stops. Choose.
But you know yourself. Or judgment, without presumption or modesty, without an opinion or any filters.
Be able to sort of separate yourself, to look at the situation from as if you were the third party, evaluating it.
Once your vision becomes impartial about your own character, you'll start focusing on your strengths over your weaknesses. Have clarity about your personal values.
What we are is an aggregation of what we choose to value in this world. Through my actions, my behaviors, what I invest my time and attention into.
You will get better at knowing and accepting yourself, and find what is it that really matters to you. That's what it means to be self-aware.
We strive for peace and fundamental human rights potential.
How well do you know yourself? You may not have all the answers. In fact, you must have a lot of questions. But it's all about realizing that uncertainty and being willing to meet yourself. Learning what you're good at and what needs to be developed.
The search for self-awareness never ever stops. It's up to us to choose to learn and grow.
But you need to be truly honest with yourself.
No, I'm confused.
Like, truly honest with yourself. Without ego or judgment. Without presumption or modesty. Without an opinion or any filters.
Be able to sort of separate yourself, to look at the situation from as if you were the third party, evaluating it.
Once your vision becomes impartial about your own character, you'll start focusing on your strengths over your weaknesses. Have clarity about your personal values.
What we are is just an aggregation of what we choose to value in this world. Through my actions, my behaviors, what I invest my time and attention into.
You will get better at knowing and accepting yourself, and find what is it that really matters to you. That's what it means to be self-aware.
We strive for peace and fundamental human rights potential.
How well do you know yourself? You may not have all the answers. In fact, you must have a lot of questions. But it's all about realizing that uncertainty and being willing to meet yourself. Learning what you're good at and what needs to be developed.
The search for self-awareness never ever stops. It's up to us to choose to learn and grow from our mistakes and our successes.
But you need to be truly honest with yourself.
No, I'm confused.
Like, truly honest with yourself. Without ego or judgment. Without presumption or modesty. Without an opinion or any filters.
Be able to sort of separate yourself, to look at the situation from as if you were the third party, evaluating it.
Once your vision becomes impartial about your own character, you'll start focusing on your strengths over your weaknesses. Have clarity about your personal values.
What we are is just an aggregation of what we choose to value in this world. Through my actions, my behaviors, what I invest my time and attention into.
You will get better at knowing and accepting yourself. And find what is it that really matters to you. That's what it means to be self-aware.
We strive for peace and fulfillment of human potential.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the workshop Mindful Self-Leadership, Detect Stress and Get Balanced. First, why mindful self-leadership? That's the word I'm searching for. You might ask, the methods and the knowledge you'll be getting, hopefully, will help you to detect stress and on yourself and on others. With that, your ability to get balanced will hopefully increase, and you'll be able to take responsibility for yourself, others, projects, and business collaborations, or in your private life, for example, in the family context. My name is Gelegenheit. I'm the regional director, which means I'm responsible for North Rhine-Westphalia of the non-profit organization Teach for Deutschland. As a non-profit organization, we aim to create equity in education. And for this purpose, we're recruiting alumni from any academic subject, train them and give them a chance to make a difference in schools in difficult areas. Training provides a leadership program while our fellows are working full-time and being paid for 2 years. Currently, we're recruiting 160 candidates for the program. If you are interested, for further information, our website, which I'll be providing in the end. But without further ado, here are the goals for today's session. After this session, hopefully, you will be understanding stress. You will be having an idea of how the body is reacting to stress, either on a physical or on a psycho-emotional basis. And you will hopefully be able to detect stress and dismantle it deliberately. And also, we would like you to know the drive principle, which is incorrect here. The principle of drives, our inner stressors. Hopefully you will know the concept of inner drives. You will know how to deal with your inner drive dynamics and how to balance them. Get started. Since today's topic is stress and how to deal with it, the first question is, what's stress and how does it affect me, my body, and my mental health? In order to give you a sense of what this all means, I want to show you a short clip from Madhumita Mogia, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right, who is a science journalist. The clip's title, How Chronic Stress Affects Your Brain, is quite meaningful. And let's get to it, like now.
Are you sleeping restlessly, feeling irritable or moody, forgetting little things, and feeling overwhelmed and isolated? Don't worry, we've all been there. You're probably just stressed out. Stress isn't always a bad thing. It can be handy for a burst of extra energy and focus, like when you're playing a competitive sport or have to speak in public. But when it's continuous, the kind most of us face day in and day out, it actually begins to change your brain. Chronic stress, like being overworked or having arguments at home, can affect brain size, its structure, and how it functions, right down to the level of your genes. Stress begins with something called the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, a series of interactions between endocrine glands in the brain and on the kidney, which controls your body's reaction to stress. When your brain detects a stressful situation, your HPA axis is instantly activated and releases a hormone called cortisol, which primes your body for instant action. But high levels of cortisol over long periods of time wreak havoc on your brain. For example, chronic stress increases the activity level and number of neural connections in the amygdala, your brain's fear center. And as levels of cortisol rise, electric signals in your hippocampus, the part of the brain associated with learning, memories, and stress control, deteriorate. The hippocampus also inhibits the activity of the HPA axis, so when it weakens, so does your ability to control your stress. That's not all though. Cortisol can literally cause your brain to shrink in size. Too much of it results in the loss of synaptic connections between neurons and the shrinking of your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that regulates behaviors like concentration, decision-making, judgment, and social interaction. It also leads to fewer new brain cells being made in the hippocampus. This means chronic stress might make it harder for you to learn and remember things, and also set the stage for more serious mental problems like depression and eventually Alzheimer's disease. The effects of stress may filter right down to your brain's DNA. An experiment showed that the amount of nurturing a mother rat provides its newborn baby plays a part in determining how that baby responds to stress later in life. The pups of nurturing moms turned out less sensitive to stress because their brains developed more cortisol receptors, which stick to cortisol and dampen the stress response. The pups of negligent moms had the opposite outcome, and so became more sensitive to stress throughout life. These are considered epigenetic changes, meaning that they affect which genes are expressed without directly changing the genetic code. And these changes can be reversed if the moms are swapped. But there's a surprising result. The epigenetic changes caused by one single mother rat were passed down to many generations of rats after her. In other words, the results of these actions were inheritable. It's not all bad news though. There are many ways to reverse what cortisol does to your stressed brain. The most powerful weapons are exercise and meditation, which involves breathing deeply and being aware and focused on your surroundings. Both of these activities decrease your stress and increase the size of the hippocampus, thereby improving your memory. So don't feel defeated by the pressures of daily life. Get in control of your stress before it takes control of you.
So, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it was informative for you and you learned some stuff about stress and what does it do to your brain. When I first saw the video, I was like, oh, my brain is getting smaller. Yeah, but fortunately there are ways to deal with it, so this wouldn't happen to you. So one of the most known scientists working on stress and how it works is Aaron Antonovsky. In order to understand what stress is, first we need to establish the difference between stressors and stress. Antonovsky defines stressors as a stimulus which poses a demand to which one has no ready-made or immediately available adequate response. When one encounters stressors, such as defined by Antonovsky, the body's stress response is triggered and a series of physiological changes take place. Finally, this means anything and nothing can be a stressor, depending on your personal disposition. It also means if you're able to detect the stressors, you can develop a coping mechanism in order to find a balance. What could such a coping mechanism be? The sense of coherence is a theoretical formulation that provides a central explanation for the role of stress in human functioning. Beyond the specific stress factors that one might encounter in life and beyond your perception and response to those events, what determines whether stress will cause you harm is whether or not the stress violates your sense of coherence. Antonovsky defined the sense of coherence, SOC, as a global orientation that expresses the extent to which one has a pervasive, enduring, though dynamic feeling of confidence that one, the stimuli deriving from one's internal and external environments in the course of living are structured, predictable, and explicable. 2, the resources are available to one to meet the demands posed by these stimuli. And 3, these demands are challenges worthy of investment and engagement. This means with a high level of SOC, individuals are more resilient to the stressors they encounter in daily life, and it helps a person to develop strategies to better cope. In some situations, however, one is more triggered by some stressors than others, and vice versa. The reason why we might experience situations differently to others might lie in the principle of inner drives. I'm sure you all have experienced such examples where you are very stressed out and friends of you are like very chilled and you wonder why. The principle of inner drives is based on transactional analysis and describes the unconscious behavior patterns and inner beliefs respectively. The inner drives are based on what we've learned during our childhood, and they determine our way of thinking, feeling, and behaving. The inner drives are formed as a reaction to spoken or unspoken expectations from any kind of authority. They are designed as a form of inner approval and formulated in the sentence, I'm okay if. All in all, there are 5 inner drives, which we'll be discussing right now. So on the right side, you'll see the drive. In this case, be strong. Underneath that, you'll see the inner beliefs that comes with that drive. On the left side, you'll see a sentence, people with this as a strong drive that have heard a lot growing up, for example, from their parents. Most people might have internalized the belief, I'm okay if no one notices my weaknesses. For me, for example, it's usually I'm okay if I'm in control. Be perfect is the second drive. Sentences like I'd have expected more of you might be known to those who have this as a strong drive. In this case, the belief I don't make mistakes might resonate with you. In my case, I can say this drive is one of the last ones, since my parents used to tell me how perfect I was, and I actually believed them. The third drive, make an effort, makes sense because nothing comes from nothing, right? The belief that goes with this drive is, for example, I show the most possible effort. In my case, the belief I choose the harder way really resonates with me. I used to think that worthiness of my achievements could only be measured by the effort I had to make for it. For instance, if there was a test in school and I got a good grade without even learning for it, it didn't mean as much as if I had to work hard for that grade. And no one told me otherwise. So I thought it's not worth it. Hurry up or speed up is the fourth drive. It leads to only feel okay if one do things immediately, no matter what. For what it's worth, for myself, I am a great procrastinator, so this drive does not apply very much. The last drive is please everyone, and it comes with repeated reminders of how to be a good person or behave well. As a result, one might have developed the belief that you're only okay if everyone likes you. At one point in my life, I decided that not everyone has to like me, since I don't want to like everyone, so I think it's only fair. Inner drives cannot be simply defined as good or bad. Moreover, there are upsides and downsides to them. The upsides being, for example, a certain behavior and attitude forms our character and defines us as individuals. Drives are a part of our unique personality. It's what makes us who we are, and that's a good thing. And no but. Drives can also be the source of our strength. Sometimes it's a good thing to have the strength to grit your teeth and get there, because sometimes things just need to be done. There's no point in fighting it. Drives can also actually be useful when well balanced, if they help us to develop healthy coping mechanisms. On the other side, like on the downside, inner drives can become disadvantages if the drives lead us to disbalance and become a source to that imbalance themselves, or if they are creating stress or make us feel unworthy. That means if the belief I'm only okay if I'm strong, or I'm only okay if everyone likes me, becomes I'm only worthy if, causes to feel unworthy and is therefore not productive at all, and doesn't help to feel or be better. In the end, drives can create a vicious circle, because on one hand, drives can help developing coping strategies, but on the other hand, they can also be the source of stress, dependent on how well you know yourself and how well you managed to establish a balance to them. In conclusion, inner drives need to be balanced. In order to do that, there are some strategies one could adapt. The first one, the SOC, like the sense of coherence we've discussed, can help to build resilience. Self-awareness and self-observation can help identify a disbalance early and develop counter strategies. Consciousness about feedback will help you to realize how your behavior impacts your environment and yourself. This can be used as a source for making adjustments if needed, or talk about it and make it transparent to others. Sometimes it's also necessary to just stop your usual flow and give yourself some time. For example, just take a breath if in stressful situations, and just try to feel what you need at that moment in order to fulfill your obligations. Or just say no if some tasks are too much and allow yourself not to feel bad about it. Giving yourself counter messages can also be helpful, such as be calm, I can do it, or I'm allowed to be sad. And last, it might also be helpful to just experiment from time to time to do things differently than usual and see what it does. For example, during the lockdowns, I've started to do yoga before starting the day. The concentrated and controlled breathing, and of course, the exercise helps me to start the day in my home office, like being fully aware and fresh. Or I also started to just go for a walk whenever my schedule allows it, or I can take meetings via phone instead of video conferencing. And if the weather is nice. This way I enjoy the sunlight spontaneously and shake things up a little, in contrary to my daily laptop life. These strategies can help you to turn your inner drives into resources rather than being a disadvantage. If we talk about leadership, the principle of inner drives can also be used as a leadership tool for leaders with an awareness. For example, Teach First Deutschland defines leadership over the willingness to take responsibility to make a change in one's own life, in the life of others, or systemical change, such as in schools or other contexts of society, rather than a formal position in a hierarchy. To know your own inner drives and establish a mindful way of dealing with them can help you to turn your surrounding in a productive environment, building a balance, and to help change things in a responsible way. It will help you not to just understand yourself, but also others you're collaborating with. Especially in a strict environment where you formally might not have the power to change things, mindful self-leadership can help to change mindsets and therefore make a difference by taking responsibility. This is what leadership comes down to, at least as we understand it at Teach First. That being said, let's take a look to the inner drives gathered here today, and I'd like to invite you to rank your own inner drives as we discussed them before. For this purpose, please go to menti.com right now and sign in with the provided code. We'll see the results in a minute all together. I will quickly change. Sorry for the technical disturbance. This is the first time I'm using the Menti, but it's actually a great tool if you want to try it. So in our group, we can see that the driver make an effort is getting most rated, which is interesting. Just think about what you just heard, and maybe it will help you to see if this driver is a harmful thing, or if you have a good relationship to your drivers. And that being said, I just want to thank you all for joining us today. And if you need further information for Teach First and our fellowship program, please look up our website. Thank you so much for the invitation to AIESEC.
Thank you very much, Cornelia. It has been a pleasure having you with us, and it was already very insightful, and especially around the topic of stress. I do appreciate the opportunity to learn and apply it for myself in the future as well.
Okay, thanks.
So for the next guest, we will introduce Professor Oliver Günther, which is a new guest. However, he was already part of AIESEC a lot of years ago in the 80s. So you can be very excited to get to know an AIESEC alumnus from Karlsruhe, actually. And he's been the president of the University of Potsdam since 2012. Previously, he was the professor of information systems at Humboldt University in Berlin. And in his research, Günther dealt with IT strategy, IT efficiency, and data protection and security. Since December 2020, he has also been the vice president of governance, teaching, and studies at the German Rectors Conference. For him, youth leadership is relevant as our next generation of leaders needs to understand the issue of diversity and the resulting challenges and opportunities early on. Together, we will have a talk about youth leadership and education. So it's also about the LDM quality empowering others. You can look forward to see us having a conversation after the break. And you also have the opportunity to ask questions to him directly. So enjoy the break. I love having all of you with us. Thank you very much and see you in the next.
Do you care about having followers? Then maybe this concept is not for you. See, one of the most important characteristics of leaders is the fact that they want to create other leaders. They have an authentic intention to see their people achieve more than they can, because they understand this is not about themselves. It's about their people. It's not about being the best. It's not about giving motivational speeches or emotional, sensitive, and encouraging words. Yes, it does involve clear communication. It's about creating spaces where people take action. You don't need to wait to become some sort of old wise man with a sexy long beard, or the experienced boss that knows it all. Remember, this is not about you. It doesn't need to start with a heroic achievement or a glorious accomplishment.
I know many people who are at the bottoms of organizations, and they are absolutely leaders. And this is because they have chosen to look after the person to the left of them and to the right of them. This is what a leader is.
It happens when you are there for others and you support them to find their magic. That's what it means to be empowering others. Do you care about having followers? Then maybe this concept is not for you. See, one of the most important characteristics of leaders is the fact that they want to create other leaders. They have an authentic intention to see their people achieve more than they can, because they understand this is not about themselves. It's about their people. It's not about being the best. It's not about giving motivational speeches or emotional, sensitive, and encouraging words. Yes, it does involve clear communication. It's about creating spaces where people take action. You don't need to wait to become some sort of old wise man with a sexy long beard, or the experienced boss that knows it all. Remember, this is not about you. It doesn't need to start with a heroic achievement or a glorious accomplishment.
I know many people who are at the bottoms of organizations, and they are absolutely leaders. And this is because they have chosen to look after the person to the left of them and to the right of them. This is what a leader is.
It happens when you are there for others and you support them to find their magic. That's what it means to be empowering others. Do you care about having followers? Then maybe this concept is not for you. See, one of the most important characteristics of leaders is the fact that they want to create other leaders. They have an authentic intention to see their people achieve more than they can, because they understand this is not about themselves. It's about their people. It's not about being the best. It's not about giving motivational speeches or emotional, sensitive, and encouraging words. Yes, it does involve clear communication. It's about creating spaces where people take action. You don't need to wait to become some sort of old wise man with a sexy long beard, or the experienced boss that knows it all. Remember, this is not about you. It doesn't need to start with a heroic achievement or a glorious accomplishment.
I know many people who are at the bottoms of organizations, and they are absolutely leaders. And this is because they have chosen to look after the person to the left of them and to the right of them. This is what a leader is.
It happens when you are there for others and you support them to find their magic. That's what it means to be empowering others. Do you care about having followers? Then maybe this concept is not for you. See, one of the most important characteristics of leaders is the fact that they want to create other leaders. They have an authentic intention to see their people achieve more than they can, because they understand this is not about themselves. It's about their people. It's not about being the best. It's not about giving motivational speeches or emotional, sensitive, and encouraging words. Yes, it does involve clear communication. It's about creating spaces where people take action. You don't need to wait to become some sort of old wise man with a sexy long beard, or the experienced boss that knows it all. Remember, this is not about you. It doesn't need to start with a heroic achievement or a glorious accomplishment.
I know many people who are at the bottoms of organizations, and they are absolutely leaders. And this is because they have chosen to look after the person to the left of them and to the right of them. This is what a leader is.
It happens when you are there for others and you support them to find their magic. That's what it means to be empowering others.
Hello, everyone. We are very happy to welcome you back to our next engagement that we offer you. And I already had first introductions when we closed the last space, but now I'm very happy and privileged to introduce to you Professor Oliver Günther. He is the president of the University of Potsdam and has already been part of AIESEC as well. So when we start, the first thing that I would love to know from you is, what did you think when you heard from AIESEC after so many years and was being asked also to be part of the Youth Leadership Day?
Well, first of all, welcome to all of you. Thank you for listening. I'm very happy to be with you today. And I'm always happy to be back in touch with AIESEC in different functions, because I still have very fond memories of my times with AIESEC as a student. I was there in the early 1980s in Karlsruhe. I was a local committee president in 1983. And even though it was a lot of work, and I'm sure all of you can confirm it is a lot of work, it was a very fulfilling experience, an experience from which I profited personally for many years to come, even until today, because I just learned some things that I couldn't have learned anywhere else. For instance, public speaking. My first public speeches I gave as an AIESEC local committee president. I was terribly nervous, but it was part of the experience. And I was back in touch many years later when I was a professor and the dean at Humboldt Universität in Berlin. I was part of the Berlin Kuratorium, which was run by the Berlin local committees. And now, a couple of weeks ago, when I was contacted by the National Kuratorium to be part of that as well, I was very happy to say yes, and I'm looking forward to many more years in accompanying your work. And of course, I'm very happy to be here today at the Youth Leadership Day. Maybe I can share some of my experiences with you that is of some interest to all of you.
That sounds very great, and I'm pretty sure you already made all AIESECers, especially from Karlsruhe and Berlin, tuning in already very happy by mentioning that you have been supporting them directly. What I would like to know from you is you have been actively engaged, as you say, and so you are aware of the landscape of volunteers back then, but also now as a president. So what I would like to know from your perspective, how do you see engagement and, well, voluntary engagement developing over time?
Yeah, I think voluntary engagement is rewarding and important for the development of one's personality in any situation, under any circumstances. Of course, there are some phases in your life where you have more time, even though everybody's day has 24 hours. The question is, how do you spend your time? But you feel like you have more time for something like this, and it fits your main profession or your main program of study in a better way. But I would say for me, it's been rewarding in any phase of my life, even when I was very busy with my studies. It was good to take some time off and do something else, and maybe by doing something else, helping other students, helping other people with something, but also, again, learning for yourself and developing your personality further. So I know, of course, especially with the Bologna reform, with bachelor, master, some programs of study have become more strict. It is for many students more important to be present in lectures and seminars, even though now with Corona, we see that a lot of it can also be substituted by digital formats. But even with bachelor, master, I think it is important to kind of fight for some spaces for yourself where you do something else. That can be music, it can be sports, it can be caring for friends and relatives, or it can be working in organizations like AIESEC, where you meet other wonderful people and you do things that you feel good about and that help other people.
That is actually very, very interesting to hear from this perspective. So one thing that is also most likely very interesting to see, especially for our young people already engaging, still looking for the path they want to take for their future. What I think everyone is very interesting also to hear is how has the journey from being an engaged volunteering student led you all the way to being the president of the University of Potsdam?
Well, I think that's a very important question in life. On the one hand, one should have plans, because plans drive you to go into a certain direction. On the other hand, plans have to be flexible. Even at my age, I cannot plan everything. Sometimes something surprising happens, some opportunity arises. People call this serendipity, that by meeting other people coincidentally or by some random event, something throws you off course, sometimes negatively, but sometimes always positively, and you end up doing something very different. And I think working in organizations like AIESEC contributes to this openness and to the serendipity. You meet people that you wouldn't meet otherwise. You're confronted with challenges that you wouldn't be met otherwise. I mentioned public speaking before. I actually founded the curatorium of the LC Karlsruhe, and I remember inviting all these important people to the first meeting. Again, I was terribly nervous. I was probably blushing during the whole speech, but it was an important experience. And so then plans adapt. Or once I had finished in Karlsruhe, I went to the US for a master's, but then I liked it very much. The circumstances were such that I ended up staying 5 years in the United States. And even coming back, I had a plan maybe to come back to Germany, but I didn't really know. So that is to say, yes, you need a certain direction. I mean, one direction that I always personally kept for me was I wanted to be in research. I wanted to be in university faculty. But, you know, if something happens, I could have also ended up at McKinsey and have done something completely different. So I think that's that kind of combination. You need to have targets that help you planning the next steps. At the same time, you have to be flexible for random events, for new people, for new ideas.
One thing that is very interesting about what you said, especially the topic of being flexible, especially when coming into, let's say, the university environment, but also into the next steps, especially in Germany, it's a culture driven by the sense of safety and wanting to have clarity going forward. So for those that maybe feel, okay, I have to go this, and this way, when you're talking about being flexible, how would you advise them to balance this feeling of having more clarity, but also at the same time staying open for new influences?
Yeah, it's a tightrope walk, of course. What we have seen in the last decades, first in the US, but now worldwide, also in Germany, is the rise of a certain startup culture. Startups didn't really, of course, they existed already when I was a student, but not really as a culture and as a serious alternative to working in a big company or working in public service like I ended up doing. I think that is very positive because it opens the minds of especially younger people for new opportunities. But in the end, everybody has to make their own decisions and feel good with them. In fact, when I was in my mid-30s, I was already a full professor at Humboldt University zu Berlin. I had an opportunity to do a startup. I actually took a sabbatical and I worked in that startup for 8 months. And then the question is, do I continue to do this and resign from the university faculty position, or do I just go back to Humboldt University? This was a very difficult decision. It's not only about security, it's also about life perspective, about long-term developments. And I ended up, as you know, going back to the university and doing startup activities and helping startups on the side. But I think so these decisions are not easy, but I think a life where you have options and where you have to make these decisions, even though they may be difficult, is more rewarding and more interesting and more fulfilling than a life where you have no choices, sometimes without your fault, and you're kind of forced into a certain path. So I think as students, you're in a position where you have major impact, because for you, many more doors are open than to somebody like me who's in his late 50s. I mean, yes, I still have choices, but when you're in your mid-20s and your early 20s, many doors are open. And I would encourage all of you to keep these doors open if you responsibly can, well knowing that at some point you have to decide, do I move to the United States or do I stay here in Germany? Do I go to Australia or not? Do I go to public service or do I stick to that startup? These are personal decisions. But once again, I think in the end, it's much more rewarding to have these choices. And working as a volunteer, like in AIESEC or some other organization, helps you keeping an open mind and having these options available to you.
It's also very interesting to hear, especially the topic also of startup culture that is building up in comparison to before. So already more and more people seeking their individuality also in their career context and trying to express their desire through the business context they choose. One thing that is very interesting, you mentioned that a lot of doors are open when you're young and there are a lot of doors to choose from. When looking at this door, what role does education play, for example, for these doors? Is it a key? Is it a compass to lead you to the right door? How would you see education in the context of finding your purpose or expressing your purpose?
Well, I think a good education is always helpful. We know from examples that it's not always necessary. Bill Gates didn't finish his bachelor degree. Elon Musk didn't go to university. So you can be successful with a high school degree or even less. But I think for most of us, education is helpful because you learn things. You learn some very technical things, but you also kind of learn how to interact in a kind of abstract subject and how to interact with other people about certain complex topics. So I think education is helpful, but of course one should not only see it as a tool, but also as a positive experience by itself. I mean, studying should be fun. If you study only because it's a drag you have to go through in order to have some kind of profession, then maybe you're doing something you're wrong. You should be thinking about alternatives, like going into some kind of other type of formation, like Handwerk or whatever. So it should be fun. But I think if it's fun, then it helps you to keep an open mind. Not everybody needs a PhD, but I think it's good for our society that more than 50% of an age cohort do some kind of academic studies, well knowing that very few of those will end up as a professor. But you study a subject, you become exposed to content and to people you wouldn't otherwise get to see. And that's, again, both a personal experience by itself and also a tool in opening up other options for you. And the same is true for things you do on the side, like working in a volunteer organization. Even though they are the same holes, I mean, there have always been people in AIESEC or many other organizations that were only there to build their resume, just to kind of put a check mark on their resume. Yes, I did volunteer work. So immoral, but it's not really how it should be. I think you should be working for AIESEC because you like the organizations, you like the goals, and you are having fun, and not because you just want to put on your resume, yes, I did this one too. And if that's the case, then it's you're really killing two birds with one stone. You have fun doing it, and it also helps you in the next steps.
This is actually a very good point that you mentioned also when it comes to volunteering work, that this is not something that should be done because how it looks like, but actually how it really connects to something meaningful and what you can gain for yourself, but also especially for others. So the idea of serving others instead of serving yourself is something that voluntary work definitely expresses. So this is something also for everyone listening, a very, very nice thing to also give towards others. One thing that came up that I got here from our stage is we are an organization that is driven also in intercultural understanding, as you know. So one question that just came up was, you mentioned being in the United States and also deciding to stay longer in the United States. So we would like to know here is how was the decision process made? Like what made you stay, but also how was your shift from Germany to the United States in terms of your cultural experience, for example?
Oh, that's a very good question. I'm from southern Germany, back in the 1960s and 1970s. Not a very intercultural place. Yes, there were all the workers from Italy, from Spain, from Greece, from Turkey, and we had some of their kids in our high school, but this was a marginal phenomenon. Also because very few of these kids back then made it to high school, sadly enough. This has changed. Germany has become much more diverse place, and that's good. But for me, the first real intercultural experiences came with AIESEC. When I was a student at Karlsruhe, and I went to international conferences. There was a conference in Portugal, there was a conference in France. For me, it was a very enlightening experience. I just loved it. Then, of course, once I left Germany and I went to Berkeley in California, the cross-cultural experience was inherent in the situation there. The University of California already back then in 1984 was a big melting pot, like the United States in general. And I very much enjoyed that. I had very quickly friends from many different cultural and national backgrounds. I lived for 2.5 years in a dormitory in Berkeley, which is called the International House. So that really changed my whole perception of the world. And why did I stay in Berkeley? Because Berkeley is a wonderful university. I loved my studies and I loved the people there. And I wanted to have that breadth before maybe in a couple of years going back to Germany, or maybe not. And that kind of intercultural aspect has stuck with me. My wife is Indian. Yeah, that has kind of really determined the rest of my life. And I'm very happy about that, because in our current climate, this is actually very helpful. And in my current profession, I remember I basically changed jobs. Being a university president is very different from being a professor. You really essentially a manager, a CEO of a crazy organization, because in the university, everybody does what they want, and that's good. But it's kind of hard to orchestrate. And you have a lot of diversity and unfortunately also racism issue. And I think my cross-cultural background helps me to deal with that more or less. I mean, of course, there are always difficult situations, especially in the current political climate with countries where academic freedom is disappearing. But I think all these experiences I started collecting in my 20s are helpful to this very day.
This is also, very interesting to hear. That also led you to your lifelong partner as well in your intercultural experience. And one thing I would like to get back to was also the main topic of our interview around the topic of youth leadership and education. When you hear both of these terms together, what are the first things that come to mind, or how would you propose to connect the idea of leadership and education?
Well, I think this brings us back to something we said before. Academic studies, you do a bachelor in 3 or 4 years, you do a master in 2 or 3 years. We convey as a university pieces of knowledge. We also try to convey a certain culture among our students, a debate culture, a culture how to interact. But to teach leadership, well, we try that in our MBA programs, but it's not easy. Leadership also mostly, not mostly, but certainly to a large degree comes by learning by doing. And my first leadership role was, well, in high school I did a little bit of something, but I was local committee president of AIESEC Karlsruhe. And that was a leadership experience. First of all, I realized being a dictator is not a very good leadership paradigm for AIESEC, just as it's also not a very good leadership paradigm for university. So young leadership, you learn probably not primarily at the university, but by taking over leadership roles on the side, being spokesman of your high school class, working in AIESEC, or doing something in sports or music or whatever. I mean, I'm trying to emphasize here that the range of possibilities is broad, but I think it's important to do something.
That's also a very, very interesting part to keep in mind, to really do something. And one thing that also came in from our audience, it's going back also to the path of learning and how this can also shape the future experiences that people can have. And especially for you, the questions that we got in was, what was the one thing you learned during your time with AIESEC that helped you improve your job as the current president?
That is an easy question for me because I already answered it. Public speaking. I realized as a student, I was a terrible public speaker. As I said before, I was embarrassed, and I realized I have to change that. Otherwise, it's not going to help. So I did some practical exercises in my AIESEC function, but I also took a rhetorics course on the side to kind of make some progress there. And I'm telling you, all of this was very valuable, especially in my current job where I have to speak publicly several times a day. But the same is true for many, many other leadership positions. So that was probably the most important for me personally. But there were many other things, the network of my AIESEC colleagues, the network I built with people from industry, the whole idea of how universities could or should interact with companies. So I learned a lot. But AIESEC has also, I mean, what I see today with AIESEC has many things in common with the AIESEC back then. But of course, I think AIESEC also has, as an organization, has evolved, and that's good. I think there's also something you learn in organizations like this, that sometimes change is necessary to survive. I mean, if AIESEC had not adapted to the internet, to the bachelor master system, probably it wouldn't exist anymore. And I think that's also an important lesson for young leaders, that you look critically at your own organization, at your own role, and you ask yourself, is that what I'm doing really the right thing? So yes, it's not only about doing things right, it's also about doing the right things. And just as our car managers have to think, am I doing the right thing building carburetor cars, or should I really switch 100% to electric? So young leaders should think, is that what I'm doing with AIESEC? That what the market or the people or the students really want? Or do we have to adapt? I think that's also an important leadership quality that you can learn, especially in dynamic times like ours.
That is a very valid point. And also one thing that when it comes to this engagement, one question that just came in from the audience is concerning the amount of volunteers. And the question was there the following: the number of the students doing volunteering work is continuously decreasing. Why do you think this is the case, and how should student organizations adapt to become more attractive?
Yeah, that's again a very complex issue. Yes, I see that the percentage of students who do volunteer work is decreasing. On the other hand, the total number of students is increasing greatly. When I was studying, about 10% of an age cohort, or 12%, if I remember correctly, went to university. Now it's more than 50%. And I think it's good that so many young people go to universities, but many of them have to struggle to survive in this unusual climate, and they put their priorities simply on their bachelor studies and then maybe on their master studies. That just doesn't leave enough time for other things. It's a pity, and I think sometimes it's also very much in people's heads. They cannot do something else. It's like, so this reminds me of when you're a young person and you have no children, you think, I'm already so busy, how could I ever have children? Children cost so much time, but then you have children and somehow you manage. So I think sometimes we have to just jump and try something, and then maybe you can combine it. And then if you need one more semester to study, okay, then you also have to think about financing. Of course, I understand all these different boundary conditions. But I think sometimes it helps just to try, but it's not for everybody. I mean, I know, see that at any university, many young people have to struggle with academic studies because it's not something they've learned at home or even in high school. And then, of course, if they put their priorities on that, that's also fine.
That's also a very interesting point that you stated here, especially the point of something feels like impossible or not manageable until it needs to be. So that actually this is more a matter of choice and context or big picture, rather than having actually the space to do so. This is a very interesting point to also keep in mind also for our audience. And we are already reaching, sadly, the end of our time that we have for the interview. So one question I would still, or one space I would still like to offer you is, what are some things you want to part with, or some wisdom you have with all of our audience members watching in that you would like to address?
I think it has to be ready to adapt to change. And the world has become a much more dynamic place over the last decades in my life. That has something to do with my own subject, computer science, that has really changed everything. So be ready to change and stay optimistic. Even COVID has shown us, even though it was a pretty nasty and unpleasant year for all of us, that I sound like a politician, but together we can move things, and with some optimism, the light at the end of the tunnel is visible. And even though sometimes it seems hard, we compare our living circumstances to those that our grandparents or great-grandparents had. I think we're in a wonderful position, and we should work on making things even better for society.
These are very inspiring end words. Especially the part of also moving together. In AIESEC, we also have the statement of moving Germany, what we're aiming for. So I think this is a very great conclusion. I want to thank you very much for taking the time, parting your experience, wisdom, and insights with all of us. And I wish you a wonderful day. And I'm very much looking forward to see you supporting us also in the future, but also driving education and leadership in your current role.
Thank you. Good luck to all of you.
Thank you very much. So with this, we hope that you enjoyed the interview that we had just now and could learn a lot and felt inspired by all these amazing insights. For our next guest is a person I was personally already able to meet. He is Carsten Zenz. He is the head of corporate communications from Huawei, and went already through a lot of experience himself. He started studying sinology and Japanese studies in Trier, Wuhan, Tokyo, with a focus on intellectual history and intercultural communication, something that is very in line with our awareness of intercultural understanding. And he worked as a consultant on numerous economic develops and local marketing projects and various provinces in China and Peking. I learned personally he can speak almost perfectly Chinese, or for me, it sounds perfect. And since November 2010, he has been part of Huawei Technologies in Germany, where he helped establish the public affairs and communication department. His area of responsibility is media relations, governmental affairs, corporate social responsibility, strategy and campaigns. And since 2018, he has been partially responsible for the overall affair, for the overall area of public affairs. When I asked him what youth leadership means for him, he said, leadership is important because in today's world, it is characterized by unprecedented technological and social changes. It requires young people with an open and resilient personality who quickly absorb new things, seize opportunities, overcome risks, and exemplify a team spirit that achieves sustainability goals with passion and focus. Today, he is giving a keynote on how crisis shaped leaders. So you can see how he also adapted and Huawei adapted to crisis. And after this, we will have a panel where we have AIESECers that have a discussion with them about topics they would like to discuss about, and also giving you a space to ask questions that you would like to ask him. So you can look forward to this. It is based on the topic of solution orientation and world citizen. And we are very much looking forward to have you there after the break. And with this, I wish you a very nice break and see you later.
Hello everyone, my name is Karina. Today I'm going to take you to a tour on our beautiful campus by Songshan Lake. The Osthorn campus is located in Songshan Lake District, Dongguan. It's about 40 kilometers away from Huawei's headquarters in Shenzhen. In Chinese, the campus is called Xiliu Beipo, which means the river slope with streams and brooks. The Osthorn campus is 300 acres and is divided into 12 zones, and each zone has its unique European styles. And it covers over 120,000 square meters to provide office space for up to 2,000 employees. Employees at this campus have 50% more office space than those in our Shenzhen facilities. There are 2 large canteens, a chain stop, and at least 2 coffee shops and convenience stores in each zone. The buildings are mostly only a few stories tall, so you can go to your office by stairs. This encourages our employees to adopt a healthier, greener lifestyle. Also, you can go from one zone to another on the electric trams. The Osthorn campus offers the convenience of modern life and the opportunities to close to nature. It represents a new work style and even a brand new work philosophy. I will show you these zones one by one with a series of videos. Stay tuned.
Everybody, I'm very glad to be here today to present you a little bit from our experiences in our company. We call the presentation today How Crises Shape Leaders. I will introduce you firstly a little bit to our company and about the crisis that we have had in the past and that we are also still in today, and how we as a team and me myself as a leader have reacted to, and how I as a leader also try to come along with all the crises that we are facing together with my team. So before I start, I give you a short introduction to the company, because I think it's important to understand what we are really doing. Well, we are a leading provider of ICT infrastructure and smart devices, and we have one mission or vision that we all in the company are sharing. And this is to bring digital to every person, home, and organization for a fully connected, intelligent world. And this already shows how we are ticking, because it means that we are living technology, we are living innovation. And it also means that all of us, we believe in progress by technology and innovation. We can see this also in the past, when you see the last centuries, when you see the first phase of industrialization, like 100 or 200 years ago. Technologies really changed the world. It changed societies, especially in Europe and from Europe. And we are living in this feeling, in this mindset. So the company itself today has almost 200,000 employees. We are active in more than 170 countries, which means we are active all over the world. Very important is that more than 50% of our employees are working in research and development. This makes us as a company very strong in this highly innovative industry. You also can see it when you compare investments of different companies all over the world. Here we are number 3 among all industries and all companies when we see the absolute investment into research and development. This was, for example, last year more than $20 billion. We have a principle in our company that every year we invest at least 10% of our revenue into R&D. Last year it was even more than 15%. And this is also a very high figure among many industries. So last year or until today, looking at our revenue, we are number 49 in the global Fortune 500. That also means that we are the biggest private company from China. So, and when we look at our portfolio, what you can see here, it's very, very broad. And this is just to try to introduce you a little bit on our main product portfolios. We started in 1987, in that year, with the company in the business which is called carrier. Carrier means network operators, like for example in Germany, Deutsche Telekom or Vodafone. This is our traditional industry. It's the traditional telecommunication industry. In former times, it was not connected yet with IT. It was really pure telecommunication. And we are coming from that section of the industry. Then later on, like roughly 10 years ago, we extended our strategy. We extended the portfolio first to the consumer business, through which we are today also known as a brand, for example, for smartphones, for tablet PCs, for wearables, VR glasses, and so on. On the other side, we have also started 10 years ago the enterprise business, which are network solutions mainly for companies and other kind of organizations. And then a fourth business unit, which is the cloud business unit providing products and services to industries for cloud. And this is also including artificial intelligence products. So if we see the main functions or functionalities of all our products, then there is in the middle of all is the connectivity. We provide the whole infrastructure of connectivity. Then we provide as a second main pillar the computing power, which is needed for all kind of digital technologies, and we also provide devices for end consumers. And when you see on our customers, then we have three main customer groups. We have the 100 of millions consumers using our smartphones. Then we have on the right side global enterprises, governments, and industries. And in the middle, our traditional customer group, the global carriers. And for the global carriers, these network operators, it's also important to mention that we only provide network equipment, but do not operate networks by ourselves, which means we are also not owning any customer information. We are not owning the data. This is especially important in the highly discussed topic of 5G, for example, and very often completely neglected in this discussion. So here on the next page, I will not go into deep. You can see it's just a different structure of all our products, and you can see that it is really connected to all kind of vertical industries, whatever you can imagine. And we are the only company who is providing an end-to-end portfolio in this whole connectivity and computing industry. So then I come to the crisis. The crises are really important for us, not only because we are in a big crisis now already for 2 years, and I'm not talking here about the Corona crisis. This is another crisis, which for us looks quite small compared to the main crisis that we are in. But before that crisis, which started around 2 years ago, in fact, we had already been in crisis during the whole career of this company. We can even say that this company was born out of crisis. And the first crisis was the personal crisis of the founder of the company, Mr. Ren Chongfei, which is today a very famous entrepreneur, and which was in 1987 someone who had no other solution to earn money than to found his own company. And this was the starting of Huawei. And during the next years in the 80s and 90s, there were one crisis after the other. And this led to a so-called sense of urgency, which is inside our company since then. And already in 2001, Mr. Ren wrote an article which was called Huawei's Winter. So winter, and this means big crisis, or even maybe end of the company. And he said that for the past 10 years, I've been worried every day about failure and turned a blind eye to success. I have no sense of honor or pride, just a sense of urgency. This might be the reason for Huawei's survival. And this is very influencing for all of us, because this is the mindsetting that we are living in. We are always in a state of urgency. We always try to do things very, very quickly, because we know things can change very, very quickly, and there can always be some new crisis coming out. And it also means, and this is more related to our mentality, that we always try to keep down to earth. We will not like celebrating success or something. If we have success, we immediately look for the next targets, look for the next challenges, planning our actions and implementing actions as soon as possible. And this is also like all our leaders are acting. This is very, very important in this company. And this is also, all these crises are very important for our strategic thinking. We are looking for, in our risk management, for many, many years we have prepared how can we do to avoid challenges, risks, dangers in the future. So we have also this mentality of preparedness, which is today helping us a lot. For example, in our chip business, we very early we started to prepare to develop our own chips, so we are very strong in this field. At the same time, because we are so strong in this field, we also got a lot of attacks globally from other countries, like, you know, the most powerful country in the world. And I want to tell you two examples of crises that we had in the 80s and the 90s, which show how we use crisis and turn them into new opportunities and new solutions for the company. So one is what it was in 1993. We had a very big shortage of budget in R&D, and this was almost the end of Huawei. There was no cash anymore, we didn't sell enough, and we did not get any new credits by Chinese banks in China. So Mr. Ren had the idea to sell shares of the company to employees. And this, in the following years, turned into the corporate structure that we have today in Huawei, and which Huawei is very famous of. He sold the shares to the employees, so fresh cash came into the company and we could survive. And this system developed into a huge corporate structure, what we are today. Today, Huawei is a private company which is not listed at stock markets and where all the shares are owned by the employees. Today, we have more than 100,000 employees holding the shares of the company. Mr. Ren still has the biggest amount of shares, but also only 1.14% of the shares. And you can imagine that this kind of system, of course, is a very big motivation for all our employees, because whatever they do, they also do it for themselves. And this is one point. The other point was that at the end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s, we had developed products for many years, with a standard that was not adopted by the Chinese market. So that again could mean the end of the company. But it was a little bit like being forced to find new ways to sell the products that we had developed, and the new way was internationalization. So this was the real start of our big internationalization. That also was the start for our business, for example, in Europe, and was the beginning of our global success. So these are two examples where you can see how crises can be taken as opportunities for completely new business fields and growth. And this is also the mindset that we as leaders should have. We need to very quickly consider new strategies, new opportunities, and then really implement them very fast. This all is the same at the moment. Just a very short introduction to the crisis where we are today. It's in fact, it already started more than 10 years ago with investigations of the American government against Huawei. There was already an investigation in 2011. It lasted for 1 year. We presented ourselves in a very open and transparent way. We showed all the data of our company to them. But 1 year later, there was a report coming out saying, without giving any proofs, but saying, we cannot trust this company, so please, US carriers do not use Huawei components. So we were excluded from American markets. In 2013, the Snowden leaks showed that American services were spying on us already for many, many years. They also didn't find any proof again for misbehavior of the company, but still all these allegations, they continued until 2018. Then it really got heavy starting from the 1st of December 2018 when our CFO, the Huawei CFO, was detained in Canada, and she is there detained until today. At the same time, she's the daughter of the founder of the company, so it's really a heavy thing. And this also maybe can show a little bit the challenge that I personally had, because I started as head of corporate communication within Huawei just 1 month before, in November 2018. Before, I had already worked for Huawei since 2010, but this was really a new field for me. And I remember very clearly when I woke up at that morning and I looked at my smartphone and I saw all these articles about this thing, and the phone didn't stop to ring the whole day, and this continued I think for 2 years. Our phones are ringing every day from morning to evening with new questions and allegations that media have. And so that was the situation that I was facing in that time during the last 2 years. So in fact, I by myself, I started with nothing. I had not that much experience in media communication. I have done different kinds of communication before that. So, well, we all work together in a team, not only here in Germany, but also all over the world with different countries. We exchanged information, and we found a way. We set up a strategy not to let us being distracted by unimportant information, just following our way, what we want to do. We continued to follow our values that I will introduce to you soon. And that's how it was. I, by myself, in the year 2019, I went more than 20 times to China with media delegations, with more than 80 media journalists and representatives, to showing them Huawei, to present us in a very, very transparent way, and so on. And of course, we did not always succeed. We did not succeed to change the whole picture about the whole image of the company, but at least we found people who think that we are trustable. So at this, all of this, here you can see just some examples that we were facing of media reports, which are really not based on facts. And this is, of course, it's a very big challenge when you are facing this really every day. But it's also that that we can feel as persons that we slowly have built up some kind of also personal resilience against all these allegations. And this is based on our beliefs, on our values that I can show you here. The first and most key core value that we have here in Huawei, and which really every employee knows when he's coming to the company, is customer centricity. And I think this is something that really everybody, not only from our company and not only in our industry, but for many industries, can learn. It is our principle that we always want to create new values for our customers. That means we are not just selling some products to anybody. We are observing our customers' needs, analyze them, and are then, based on these needs, developing our own products and then provide it to our customers. That was always the root and main reason for our success. Even like 30 years ago, when our technology was not that much advanced, we still could compete with much more advanced companies just because we were so customer centric, and we always had this strategic focus. That was really very, very important, and it's something where I think everybody can learn from. Another thing that we have inside our company is what you can see here on the bottom: to grow